what do you see happening with biotech and AI and obviously like AlphaFold was one of like the big, announcements of the past decade of using AI to read how proteins are created. That's maybe a starting point. But where do you see this going with AI and the ability to write or program life?
Yeah, so many places. So first, I want to remind us that we had AI before ChatGPT and before generative AI and before LLMs. So I'm going to take you back a little bit and then bring us forward to that point. So, when we talked about natural language processing, machine learning, computer vision, all of these things, they were being applied in really interesting ways in biology and the various verticals that biotech touches, like healthcare way before this current AI moment that we already have. And it's kind of funny when I remember. So when I was in graduate school, gosh, 25 years ago now, which really like isn't that long ago, all things considered, I was inventing a technology in the laboratory that I thought, figured, great, this is great. We need this tool. And then suddenly I got it to work. And then I had 19 million data points and I had no idea what to do with them. And so suddenly I had to learn to program in order to handle all that data. And back then, being a biologist, most of us sort of just had to be able to multiply, and that was considered sufficient. And then suddenly I was in this field where you had to have advanced mathematics, statistics, all kinds of advanced math, and then be able to program on top of that. Fast forward now, and I think graduate students are understanding that actually computation is not a nice to have in biology. It's almost necessary. And especially if you're doing anything with large data sets, you've got to be fluent in this. So you mentioned AlphaFold. So now we'll fast forward to this point. So in my opinion, pirate poetry, which yeah, I use ChatGPT for all the time. That's not the killer app for AI. For me, biology is the killer app. So you mentioned AlphaFold. So as a reminder, AlphaFold was an algorithm that was released by Google DeepMind in the UK. And essentially what AlphaFold does is the first version of AlphaFold was it was able to predict a protein's structure from its sequence alone. I said that in one sentence, but that was the holy grail of molecular and cellular biology for a century. And again, when I was in graduate school, in order to solve a protein structure, you would use X-ray crystallography and do all these things. And it might take you 8 years, it might take you 10 years to solve a protein structure. You still have to do crystallography and things like that today, but now with AlphaFold, you could do that. They have a database now of every single protein known to man, right? And that's hundreds and hundreds of millions of them. It's there. These are predictions. You still have to go to the lab and confirm that the prediction works, but these predictions are pretty darn good. And so that means you can get 85% of the way, 90% of the way in 150 milliseconds instead of 8 years, which is pretty spectacular.